Well, it's my pleasure to be here. I'm here to tell you a story about this lady. That's my grandma. Her name is Hazel Menching. And in order to understand what my grandmother meant to our family, you kind of have to go back a little bit. Actually, let me, this is on an automatic rotation for some reason here. So, my parents were part of the baby boomer generation, and they took full advantage of the late 60s and were very heavily into drugs and alcohol. And so as a young person, my family life was pretty rough. My grandparents, Hazel and Chick Menching, were really the rock. And my grandmother, the matriarch of the family, was really the strength behind that. And so they provided me and my siblings with a tremendous amount of love and support that we otherwise did not have in our family. So as my grandmother got older and my grandparents got older, I took care of them for a number of years and handled a lot of their healthcare needs and things of that nature. After my grandfather passed away in 2007, and my grandmother had a hip fracture very soon after that, and started developing dementia, the family got together and realized that it's really difficult to take care of grandma ourselves. And so we decided that it would be best if she lived in an assisted living facility near where we lived, and so we had somebody that could watch her all the time, and we can go and visit her. And that's really where she was in February of 2013, and that picture that you see right there on the right was actually taken on a Sunday in February, the Sunday before this very unfortunate thing happened. And what happened was the facility staff, she was in an assisted living facility in a memory care unit. Facility staff decided to take her on a sightseeing excursion. And they took her out in her wheelchair, put her in the back of the wheelchair van. They strapped the wheelchair into the van, but not her into the wheelchair. The driver was speeding up to make a light that was turning yellow to red, and decided at the last second to abort that attempt. And when he did, he slammed on the brakes. She flew out of her chair and went headfirst into the metal seats that were ahead of her. Instead of calling 911, the facility staff picked her up, put her back in the chair, and continued on the sightseeing excursion. They got back to the facility, informed the leadership of the facility and all the care staff there of what had happened, and instead of calling 911, they waited approximately 4.5 hours before they called the family. They called my aunt and said that my grandmother had had a little fall and had a bump on the head. And my aunt, being a very suspicious person, thankfully, called me and said, "All right, do you happen to be close to Grandma's place? Could you go check on her?" What you also should know is that I worked as an emergency medical technician on EMT and paramedic units for the first 7 years of my career. So I've seen lots and lots of injured people. So I went out to the facility, and this is what I found. And so these pictures were taken when I found her, sitting in the chair, and as you can see, she has a very significant bruising to her right shoulder. She has the laceration on her arm that they had bandaged up. She also has, you can see her general demeanor is compared to what she normally was. I mean, you'd have to be blind to not be able to see what was going on. 1 minute, really? And what ended up happening was I forced them to call 911. They took her to the facility, to a hospital, and she had a spiral fracture of her right tibia and fibula. She died several days later. After that, given the fact that I work for UC San Diego Health Sciences, I do government and community affairs, and I do advocacy. I decided that the time had come to make some significant changes, and we formed Hazel's Army. And Hazel's Army is an advocacy organization that is dedicated to consumer awareness and legislative advocacy. This is how you contact us. It's also information on the sheet. But Facebook is at Hazel's Army at yahoo.com, and then also at that phone number. And since we were created, we have over 640 people signed up or enlisted in Hazel's Army. We have legislation at the state level with CAR and a number of other organizations as part of this RCFE Reform Act of 2014. And we also have significant change at the county coming. And so the County of San Diego has taken it on to create a rating system for assisted living facilities, which does not exist currently. They're also creating a special prosecution unit at the district attorney's office and doing a number of other activities, all focused on protecting seniors, or doing, as we say at Hazel's Army, fighting for the greatest generation and beyond. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Again, this is really about my grandmother and all the other people out there who are like my grandmother. And so thank you very much.
Again, my name's Andrew Thompson, and I'm an attorney with Elder Law and Advocacy, and I think it's probably good that I follow that story with the options that you have if something like that happens, both in the RCFE setting as well as in the nursing home setting. And my department, we are kind of twofold. First, we do advice and counsel. So we'll advise you as to the laws and what protects your rights in both the RCFE and nursing home world. And the second is we talk to you and advise you on what to do if those laws are violated. There are two other organizations that we don't have up here today. Community Care Licensing is one, Department of Public Health is another. Those are state and county agencies where you go to file complaints. We will help you do that. And if it's egregious enough, we'll help you file a complaint in the civil court system and take it through the labyrinth of the civil litigation world. So that in a nutshell is what we do. And I don't need to wait for the director's hook to take me off of here. It's kind of unusual to have an attorney with a microphone and a room full of people and only have 5 minutes to talk. But I certainly appreciate it. We do have literature in the back. We have a table as well out in the main foyer with my number. It's impossible for me to sit here and tell you everything that I do. I can sit on one side and tell you about compassionate caregivers and how great some of the owners and administrators are. And then I can go over to this other side and I can tell you about the horrors that I've seen and the abuses I've seen. Don't wait. Know your rights. And when you feel that they've been violated, know where to turn. Thank you very much.
Andrew gave me his time then. I'll take it. I'll take your minute. All right.
Give them to me, Shanna.
No, you have 10. Okay. All right. So, and again, I'm Shanna Gators, and I'm with the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program. And I just want to give a little mini overview about what our program is. A lot of people, if you've ever visited anyone in an RCFE, assisted living, or skilled nursing facility, you may have seen our poster up. I should have brought one to hold up. And people look at it, they can't even pronounce it, so let alone know what we actually do in a facility. So really briefly, this is our mission. We want to advocate for the quality of care, quality of life for those that live in long-term care facilities. And that's really our main goal in there. We visit every skilled nursing facility and residential care facility for the elderly within the county, and we rely very heavily on a core group of volunteers to do those visits. There's 5 of us on the staff. There's no way we can get out to like 800 something places. So our volunteers are really what make this program run. And they're the ones in there every day talking to residents. They walk down the hall, they introduce themselves to people and let them know that they have an advocate out there for them. We don't work for the facility, and we're only here for you. We want to know how you're doing and how can we make things better for you? How can we help you? So that's really essentially what our program does. This is a list of some of the things we do. We resolve, investigate, and receive complaints. We assure a regular presence in skilled nursing facilities. Biggest piece, we advocate for residents' rights. We like to provide a lot of education. If you call our 1-800 number, which is on the handout that's on the back table, there's always there's a staff ombudsman there who can provide consultation and answer any questions you may have regarding somebody's rights or any concerns you may have in a long-term care facility. And we work with a lot of different agencies. I forgot to mention that. We're housed right by Adult Protective Services. We work with a lot of consumer groups, and we have to coordinate our efforts with the licensing agencies in these facilities quite a bit. Oh, I don't know what I did there. This is to give you a better idea of the numbers of the facilities in the county. 89 skilled nursing facilities, approximately 656 assisted living communities. That number fluctuates for opening and closures that often happen. And then we also go out to other programs like adult residential facilities and day programs. So in all, we kind of oversee about 1,300 facilities in the county. So what we look for. So when we go out and we have a volunteer ombudsman or a staff ombudsman, doing a general visit. We're not going out because we got a complaint or we want to look at some, we just go because we want to walk around. We want to let people know that we're available to them. But while we're doing that, we look to make sure that our poster is up there. They're required by law to have our poster up and visible for people to see, 4 in skilled nursing and 1 in RCFEs. So we look for our poster and make sure that it's readable, it's big, where people can see it, that they didn't shrink it down or do anything funny to it, which a lot of places do. And then just general, is it clean? How do the residents look? What does it smell like in the facility? Does anyone look injured? When I was here last week, does this person look like she's had a change in condition? Does she look different than before? We can ask. We just say, hey, is she okay? And I talked to her last week. She's not looking so good today. Did something happen? They don't have to tell us because it's confidential health information, but we ask because we want to make them know, hey, we're looking, we're paying attention, and I've noticed something's changed with this person. And then lastly, we do have a table out in the exhibition hall as well. We have some copies of resident rights in skilled nursing and RCFE facilities in our table for you. But this is just a list of some of the resident rights in those facilities. They seem basic, they seem common sense, but you've got to remind people of these things, that they should be treated with dignity and respect at these facilities. They should get help when they need help. If they had a fall, their family should be notified right away. That people are free of restraints. They're not tied to their wheelchairs. They don't have full bed rails up. They're not being overdrugged, which is a big problem. That you have the right to meet with people privately, make confidential calls to us to tell us what's going on, that you have that right. And the biggest one for me is self-determination. I think people go into facilities and they think that you're in a facility and you need care, that you can't think for yourself anymore. And that, the doctors and nurses know better for you, and we're going to tell you what you need. And our big piece is reminding people that, no, they still have all their rights, unless they're conserved, and even then, they can still say, no, I don't want that medication. No, I don't like that person to bathe me. No, I don't like to eat rice, and make their choices clear. And we have to do a lot of educating to facility staff and remind them that these are still people, and they still have rights, and need to be told that. So. That's all about our program. I will turn this over to Carlos. And if you have questions, feel free, call our program at any time.
I'm not very technical, so bear with me. Oh, there we go. Is that it? That is it. Yeah. Where do I go?
Go down there and then over. No, that one. There
we go. Yes. Hi, my name is Carlos Morales. I'm a supervisor with Adult Protective Services, and I was told earlier on that somebody out there has my name badge. So if you see another Carlos Morales, it's not me. It's somebody else. I'm here to talk to you about Adult Protective Services, and more than anything to kind of point out some issues or some things that you might want to observe out in the community so that we can protect our older and dependent adults out there. So then I go here. Whoops. All right. So basically the goals for this right now is just to give you an overall picture of elder abuse in San Diego and in our community, on some tips to have so that you can look out for your loved ones, and then describe briefly what we do in Adult Protective Services. Just some general figures. There's about 370,000 people in San Diego right now that are over 65. 45,000 of them are over 85, which is pretty significant. There's more women than men in that age group, and about 1/5 of the people over 65 are still employed and working actively. About 1/3 of these individuals live by themselves, which means that they are living by themselves, not with somebody else, not with a partner or a spouse. They're living independently and by themselves. And more than 10% live with grandchildren aged 18 and under, which is a phenomena that has happened a lot more with the recession and families having to live together to help and support each other. Most of the people over 65 are incredibly vibrant. They're healthy, active, They're independent, they're working, they're productive, they're involved with their communities, are doing things that they enjoy and have no problem. But sometimes things really do go wrong. In the United States right now, about every 5 seconds, an older adult is being abused. It's a lot. Many times, there's a lot of self-neglect, people who have stopped taking care of themselves or are unable to do so and don't reach out. And many abusers actually come from a caregiving role or are members of the family. So that's a big problem. And they're the people who are usually most hidden. And did you know that only about 1 in 23 cases gets actually reported to Adult Protective Services? So of the 10,000 reports that we might have received last year, when you multiply that by 23, about thousands and thousands of people did not get reported to Adult Protective Services and didn't get assistance from us. Pretty horrible thought. What are the different forms of abuse that I'm going to be talking to you about? And these, I'm going to show you some very kind of graphic and terrible pictures. I apologize for that, but this is the reality, and I want us all to be aware of that. What we in Adult Protective Services go out and investigate is self-neglect, the inability to take care of yourself, neglect by somebody else who has a responsibility, some responsibility to take care of you, physical abuse, financial abuse, and mental and emotional abuse. I won't go into a lot of details about them, especially financial abuse. I understand you had a talk with Paul Greenwood early on, and he's fantastic. So this is a picture of a house of someone who's a hoarder, lives by themselves, has been collecting for years, and has deteriorated in health and is unable now to take care of themselves. So we can offer services to this individual if this individual wants us to offer them services. But we've gone into homes like that many times. This is the same home, the inside of the home, somebody who's been living like that for many, many years. And this didn't happen all of a sudden. It happens gradually, and often family members, loved one, neighbors can see this accumulation, but they don't do anything about it because it's so slow. Every day there's a little bit more until it ends up looking like that. Here's an individual who had hoarded so much that you can hardly see them. It's a bad picture, but this person was sleeping on the floor on a bed of rags. That's their kitchen sink, same situation. Other types of abuse are those of physical abuse. People attack each other, get into violent situations, and the results are those. Those are severe bruise marks and finger marks. There's somebody who was hit in the face, punched in the face and in the mouth. Cases of neglect. This happens often enough as well. People whose caregivers don't provide good care and assistance. In this case, what you're looking at is some foot wounds that have not been tended to. Here's a case, there's some legs that have severe infection and have also not been tended to by anybody. Financial abuse, we've already talked about it. All the scams especially. I always tell people who fall victims of scams to tell everybody they know that they fell victim of a scam. The first thing that they tell me is, I'm embarrassed. I don't want to talk about what happened to me. But that's the only way we can stop scams, is by telling everybody your story. Tell it that it happened to you so that it doesn't happen to somebody else. So what are you supposed to look out for, and what are we supposed to look out for, and what would be important for you to make a report to Adult Protective Services? Clear, I mean, visible injuries are obvious. Somebody has you're walking, you see a loved one with a visible injury, well, you need to ask what happened and make a report. Changes in personality are important. Stressed or angry caregivers are really important. Or if there's drugs, alcohol, criminal behavior in the home, those need to be looked at. or lack of food, water, utilities, or belongings that should be there are missing, or huge changes in bank accounts, or you walk in and there's all of these piles of lottery scams and everything. Why does this really happen? Oftentimes, well-intended caregivers have a lot of stress, and they, instead of reaching out for help, they let things fall apart, and then the actual abuse happens. They might have physical or mental conditions that impede them from taking care. They might just be greedy, or they want to have power and control of individual. So what do you do? In case of an emergency, call 911 immediately. Absolutely, call 911. And second to that, call Adult Protective Services. The number is also in that handout, and I put it over there. What Adult Protective Services do? We would send out your report. The report that you make is absolutely confidential. We send out an investigator, a social worker like myself, who goes out unexpectedly to the home and does an investigation of what you have reported. So the allegations that you reported, we go there. We support the individual, especially to remain at home in a safe setting. We're not about taking people out of their homes. First thing, I've had an abuser run into me and say, Mom, they're here to take you to the home. That is not our role. Our role is to maintain a safe environment in the home. We advocate for the victims of abuse. We try and protect them or bring in. We can't physically protect them, law enforcement does, but we have very, very close ties with all other organizations and law enforcement to maintain, and we collaborate with other agencies. Got 1 minute, and I'm going to finish on time. You even have 1 minute to ask me a question. So I put some resources there for caregivers that I can facilitate for you later on as well. And that is the end of my speech.
I don't know. Oh, now is it working? Yeah. All right. Great. So we do have a few minutes for questions. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping first, and then we'll have more time for questions. I have this box, and I'm going to pass it around, and I want it to end up in the back on the table. And you all have evaluations with you. I think they're in your bag. It's what your raffle ticket is attached to. And you have a chance to win a prize with your raffle ticket. So what you have to do is you keep the part of the raffle ticket that says keep this side, and you fill out the evaluation, and you turn in the other side of the raffle ticket with the evaluation. Also, on the very back of that packet, I think there's a work group form. Does anybody see the work group form on the back? It looks like, sir, you probably have that. Yeah. Could you hold that up so people could see it? It's a white form. And what I think you heard one of our speakers, I think Ellen Schmeeding talked about this morning. After today, there's going to be several work groups working on issues related to safety for older adults. And we are inviting the whole community to take part in these. And so if you would like to get involved with that, with helping us improve the situation for seniors and safety in San Diego, sign up there. And you can turn that in as well with the evaluation. So I wanted to alert you to that. I'm going to pass this, we'll put the evaluations in here, and I'll pass this around so you can complete those. After these questions, you can go back into the main hall where all the nice tables are, and we will have opportunity drawings and just a few closing words. But now we actually have time for questions. And I think that we cut Aaron a little bit short, so I wanted to start with him. I'm thinking, oh, really? Yeah, I think that I am not sure, but we do have the time. So I'd like to first ask if people have questions specifically for Aaron, and then we'll let him answer. And so if you have a question for Aaron with Hazel's Army, with his advocacy for people in facilities, raise your hand and I'll bring the microphone over to you. No questions. Well, I have a question. What kinds of things do people do when they're helping you with Hazel's Army?
So there's a variety of things that people do. One of the big ones is calling your legislators, particularly your state legislators, your assembly people, and your senators, and telling them that you support legislative reform for assisted living facilities and additional oversight, because quite honestly, the system of oversight is quite pathetic. My grandmother's case, they found 3 significant violations for the facility, and they fined them $150, which is the maximum under state law for killing somebody in an assisted living facility. So we're working on changing that and elevating that amount. Another thing is, if you're involved with any groups in the community, if you'd like for us to come out and do a presentation from them, spread the word about it, by all means, feel free to do so, to contact us. And also, if you have stories yourself, please feel free to either send them to my email or go on our Facebook page. You can even private message me on the Facebook page and share your story as well, because we use those stories when we go and talk to elected officials and we go and talk to communities.
Thank you very much. All right, and now I'll just open it for any question for any of our panelists. Raise your hand and I can bring the mic over to you. All right, right here in the front.
I think the easiest way I could ask mine would be if it related maybe to the mental and emotional abuse, and if there are any other grandparents who are being prevented from seeing their grandchildren, and whether there might be, I don't know, a class action lawsuit or something. If it's just something that has happened to my husband and me, and I've heard of a few other people, and it just seems like there might be, I don't know if there's a legal resource that would be possible, but it's, you know, it's a form of emotional abuse, definitely. And
Okay, so I think I am understanding this question to be about legal rights of grandparents to have access with their grandchildren, and I think this would be a question for...
Well, I think it's kind of a combination
Okay.
Sorry, I don't think that there's going to be a class action, unfortunately, because it's a case-to-case basis, depending on the facts behind and who actually has the authority. And it's difficult because the rights of grandparents are always less than the rights of parents. And even if drugs and alcohol and abuse is prevalent, it's still, the grandparents still have a hard time. So conservatorship, if you look into things like that, it's difficult, but there are avenues if you want to use the legal system. Class action, unfortunately, you just wish morally that grandparents wouldn't necessarily be able to see their grandchildren, but unfortunately that doesn't happen in every situation.
It saddens me to hear your story, and I have worked with people like you who report that they feel abused, and it is an unfortunate situation. The fact of the matter is that if the children are somehow being abused, then you need to contact child welfare services, and they will remove the children from there. And then if they do get removed, theoretically, they have to follow their own protocols, right? But the parents have authority over who they let their children be with and not. Unfortunately, Adult Protective Services wouldn't be able to help with that. Yeah.
What I'd like to find out is what agency do you contact if you see someone living in those deplorable conditions where they have pack rat situations and so forth? Is it a specific agency that we should address? Thank you.
Yes, you'd make a report to Adult Protective Services by calling 1-800-510-2020. When you make that report, they'll ask you for all the information. The most important thing is that you give us a name and especially an address of where we're supposed to go. Because we show up unexpectedly, we don't want to make an appointment to do it. We want to be there and see it as it's happening. Now, when you make the report, your name is kept absolutely confidential, and there's no way that the person that we're visiting or the bad people that might be living there will know that you made a report. So your name is kept confidential.